Hey guys, it's Isaac back with Elias and Whip Company. I got part two today of my Instagram hangout with Tory from Sword Guy Builds. Hope you guys enjoy, and don't forget to like and subscribe because we are doing our giveaway at 100 subscribers. We're going to be giving away this 3 foot micro pocket snake whip to the winner of that raffle. So remember to subscribe, like the video, and I hope you enjoy. Here you go.
And we're back.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know latitude. That's cool. Oh man, I'm actually stressing now that I don't have enough length to get my remaining 10 feet out of this thing, which is dumb because it's like, come on, I just did the math on this. Oh man. Oh yeah, I was I
So
was
there's
gonna I
there's
was gonna
a there's a little question there. What do you how do you calculate your strand length? Do you use 1.5 or what do you use for your multiplier?
uh 1.5 is uh my go-to.
Okay.
But built up if I built up my belly in the slightly fatter way that I do sometimes, then I'll use 1 2/3. Uh,
Okay.
and yet, like, another thing you can do is just still use 1.5, but take your base measurement like 6 inches further, you know?
Hmm.
And it's like,
Right.
and it's definitely frustrating that so many people still don't know that rule because it's everywhere and it's all over
Right.
Nick's website, you know? Like, just do a little bit of research. Uh, but at the same time, it's it's weird because it's so crazy dependent on the way that you braid, you know? It's
Right.
like Nick and I, when I was visiting him last year, and we made that we did that stock whip build together. It was
Hmm.
like we both cut the same lengths, uh,
Uh-huh.
and braided to the same distance, you know. Uh, but
Right.
most of his strands came up short, uh,
Hmm.
and I believe it's because he braids a little bit looser than I was braiding at the time, and he pulls at a more like outward angle where I was maybe pulling a tiny bit tighter, but it was a stock whip, so it should be sort of flowy anyway. Uh,
Hmm.
so I was pulling it a tiny bit tighter and at like a longer angle, you know.
Right.
Uh, and those things and others affect how far your strands are going to go, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, and it just, to a certain extent, you definitely have to learn your own the way that you work, you know. Uh, but it's also like it's all over the internet. Just one and a half,
Yeah.
1.5 times, guys. Oh man. Uh, have you have you done the bundling thing where it's kit, where
Take it.
like for me with this 20 foot, like if I wanted to, I could tie each of my strands into little hanks
Hmm.
and let them hang that way instead of uh, letting them hang loose, you know.
Oh yeah.
And it's like I haven't done that for years, and it's like it just becomes unnecessary when you're it's like you can braid faster by just taking a moment every inch or two to like untangle your strands than
Right.
if you take 10 minutes every few inches to like tie new bundles, you know.
Right.
Like just one of those things that's like, I don't know, newbies get hung up on sometimes, I think. And yet it's like, yeah, like I said, I did that too. Like my first, I've made two 40-foot whips. One of them was actually like not usable. It's still hanging on my wall because I couldn't use it. It just wouldn't. I don't know.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, for both of those, I was making like little bundles out of my strands, uh, and it's like you really don't realize how much time it adds doing that.
Uh-huh.
And yet, like I kind of had to do it that way just because at the time I was braiding sitting down with a vise, you know. But
Oh
for
yeah.
this one, I have it on the hook, and I'm braiding standing up. So that gives your strands more distance between the whip and the ground. So,
Right.
you know that the tangling is simply not as bad as if you're sitting down right next to it. You know. Uh,
Yeah.
so it just whatever. Um, just goes back to my usual thing about like we all owe it to ourselves to try lots of different things. We are cheating ourselves by saying, you know what? No, I've figured out what works for me. I'm going to stick to that. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, sure, but if you if there's something new for you to try, like just try it. You know?
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, I don't know, but I'm a snob. I'm a weirdo.
Yeah, I haven't I want to possibly when I get done with school and I really actually start making it again. I want to tackle a 20-foot or a 30-foot and
Be
actually
awesome.
braid it.
That'd be really really awesome.
Uh,
The
as
way
you know, and Mason POV operator, if you're still watching, Wilson, my giant 20-foot uh, behemoth whip, that's kind of made off my own design of a little. It's basically a 20-foot Insta whip with a few variations that I did to bulk it up. Um, that thing's just too much of a monster to actually be a feasible whip, and use for any type of like targeting, or I'd never like use it to try and wrap a person because I'm pretty sure it would severely injure even even if you do the what you would when you go to wrap somebody and crack way off to the side of them.
uh,
But it's too
yeah,
big, too heavy, too unpredictable to do anything like that.
for sure. No, I would be really stoked if you did that. Um, Sometime last year, I started work on a 60 foot, uh, but I just didn't even stick with it because there we go. I just didn't even stick with it because it was such slow going, and it was like my logic at the time was if I'm doing a 60 foot, working from strand centers as a keeper for the handle, it's like that's going to 60 times 1.5 is 90 times 2 is 108. I'm going to have 180-foot strands at the longest, and I'm not doing
Yeah.
that. So my thought was, dude, I'll just do that color fading strand swap out uh, to minimize the length of each strand. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I can trade colors every 10 feet, and that's 6 colors. That's a full rainbow. I'll just make a rainbow 60-foot whip. And that was the idea. So it started red, and then I started fading into orange. But after a while, I started realizing, oh, shoot, when I'm adding in these strands and then replacing the overlay strands with them, this entire section is going to be marginally heavier than it needs to be. And if this is happening every like 5 to 10 feet, this thing is going to feel terrible, you know? So
Yeah.
I braided probably 15 feet of it,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just God, probably not even that. It was probably like maybe 10 or 11 feet. I'm not sure. And then it just hung out on the ground, and I never finished it.
Oh man.
And it's like at this point, I'm not sure if my tapering logic would allow for a whip that long. Because it's like you got to figure that. Okay, like what I was saying before, obviously if you slow the taper of a whip, it's going to move slower because the energy transference is that much less extreme, So
Right.
like, I mean, we know that if you taper from like 1 inch down to a quarter inch over 6 feet, that's a great whip. That's probably going to feel awesome. But if you taper from that same inch to a quarter inch over 30 feet, the energy transference is just not going to be there. Your follow through, your like drawback on it is going to have to be
Hmm.
so extreme that it would just I don't know it would probably just feel terrible. Not to mention
Yeah.
the like throwing strength you would need for it would probably also be immense. And it's just like, who's this for?
Right.
That being said, I did recently update the website. Uh, I added a listing to the all models page for cow whips, and I'm offering like 5 to 10 feet and then 15, 20, 30, and 40 foot
Oh, nice.
as standard options. But it's like, yeah, I don't think 40, or I don't think anything above 40 would be like reasonable. I don't think that would feel good at all.
Hmm.
Uh, anyway, bunch of nonsense to think about for when you're like trying to
And if
start
you
your.
can, and if you can do any crack besides a flick, or if you can get it to Calvin's crack, I'll give you 25% off.
uh, at that point, that would be several $100s off. I'm not doing that. Like I still made a great whip. uh, it's one of the things I come back to a lot, like with people who don't like whip consumers who don't necessarily know whip making.
Hmm.
They're always like, "Oh wow, it's so expensive," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's a highly specialized skill set that I've been working on for, like 5, 10. It's worth this. And if you think that my prices are expensive, like you clearly haven't been doing your own research." And it's like, I don't know, people
Hmm.
people just have weird weird perceptions of this stuff. Uh, they think that like, oh, since I'm talking to like a single person, there must be a certain expectancy of like haggling and stuff. And I'm like,
Right.
our profit margins are slim at best. Please just buy the whip for what it's worth.
Yeah. Especially when it comes down to like the amount or just the material cost isn't up there too much unless you're looking into like your rawhide whips.
Sure.
But when it comes down to like paracord, making a paracord whip, the cost of just labor time is incredible, and
For
it's
sure.
probably even cheap because let's say an 8 foot whip takes me like say 3 hours, or 3 days of maybe 8 hours a day of plating to do all the bellies and all the work, or a 10 foot whip. Let's say a 10 foot whip, 3 days, 8 hours a day. So that's 20, 24 constant hours of braiding.
For sure.
Saying I charge like $10 a foot, so $300 for the whip, and 20, and then take 24 divided by let's say whatever I'd like to be paid, say even like $10 an hour.
When I was starting out, I was doing like 12 bucks an hour.
So, so the cost of what I would actually make out of that would be what I should be charging 8 times 24 and what I am charging, say, 10 times or 10 times 30. Yeah, I think that works out, right?
Uh,
But anyways,
basically,
I don't have a calculator on me, but
basically you're saying
the
that
you're getting underpaid for the actual work span you're working on the product versus what's actually being sold.
for sure, yeah, and it's like people don't understand, even for me, it's like I braid very fast. I'm
Mm-hmm.
the fastest braider that I know personally, so I can get stuff done quickly. So like to a certain extent, people think that that means it should be cheaper, but I'm like, no, no, no. Like I spent 6 years learning to get this fast, and during those 6 years, like this was not self-sustaining. I have to be this fast in order to be able to provide people with my work. Uh,
Right.
so it's like you gotta pay what it's just. It all comes back to that same thing. You have to be willing to pay what it's worth.
And
Uh,
for anyone who's looking for a whip, um, take whatever the whip is and divide it by what you're divide it by the length of the whip. So if, again, 10-foot whip, if it's $300, divide it by 10, and you get $30 a foot, and you can kind of see what the maker you're buying from is charging. Like, uh,
that that is a
it,
it's a fair way to get like an idea.
yeah,
Uh, but I mean, I'm
gives
sure.
you more of a base price to go off of, I guess.
Well, I mean, at this point, I do
Or
it sort of on a sliding scale uh,
yeah,
of sorts, but yeah, you're right. It's like uh, that is a fair way to get an idea of yeah.
but also if you're going to buy a whip, talk to the maker, actually get to know the maker, and know who's making your whip.
Yeah, yeah, you really that's actually a fair. I would let me think. Yeah, I guess I won't try to pronounce the screen name, but yes, I would invite you to like really stand stand strong on that resolve, because it's like, because if you sell your work for cheap, people are going to expect cheap work from you, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, yeah, if you hold to your pricing, uh, like really respect your time and your skills, uh, that also gives you license later on to like throw down and tell people, oh no, like when you buy my stuff, you're buying the time and the quality that I put into this, uh,
Exactly.
the engineering, research and development, uh,
Mm-hmm.
not to mention anybody who like goes full time with it. It's like we don't get insurance, we don't get retirement plans.
Mm-hmm.
It just, if you want this work done, you gotta pay what it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm I guess I'm lucky enough that I haven't had too many run-ins with people who didn't respect my time.
Right.
Uh, but it is one of those ever-present concerns, because every once in a while somebody is like, that is a lot more than I was expecting to pay. Like, why are they so expensive, or why do you charge so much? And it's like, come on, man. Like, I'm just trying to support myself, and like, in the first place, you came to me, like, you want my stuff.
Right.
Don't be trying to tell me what I should be charging for it. Uh, yeah, it's tough. It's frustrating, and it's also like the actual whip making part of it. That's
Hmm.
like a third of the job. You know, you also have customer correspondence, building up your website, building up your online presence, your social media presence and stuff, uh,
Right.
recording videos, editing videos into advertisements. Just you have to ship all your own stuff, obviously,
Mm.
and then somehow like you become responsible in in my case here, like I'm somehow responsible for the fact that the $700 whip got taken to the wrong place, even though I double checked the the information on it and it was labeled correctly. The post
Hmm.
office messed up, but somehow I'm wrong, you know. And it's like
Yeah.
I did everything I was supposed to. What for the amount of responsibility that we take on, you know? It's just yeah, silly
It's you're being the sole runner of a full business, every side of everything,
for sure. But
and there's a lot to it.
I'm not sure if you can tell the difference, but yeah, now we've got probably uh 10, 11, 11 and a half feet done.
Nice.
I feel like I feel like I still don't quite have. Oof! Oh, kill me! I feel like I still don't quite have the length that I need. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Uh, yeah, hopefully I'm able to get this finished up. But yeah, I don't know.
We'll have to meet up, and you'll have to let me give that thing a try.
Oh yeah, for sure. Uh, just as soon as the
As
world
soon as
isn't
we
trying to
can,
anymore.
and then for anyone who's wondering, I'm just doing crackers again. This was this morning's, and then I got another batch here on the table that's about as big from just the stream.
Oh yeah, and I forgot my obligatory pitch in here. Uh, buy this dude's crackers. He's selling them for very cheap.
Can't remember what I said last stream, like 750 for a batch of 10. Just DM me anywhere on Instagram, Facebook. I try and or YouTube now. Let me know, and I'll try and get them shipped out to you guys.
And I really do I really do respect uh, how the effort that you put into minimizing the waste. You know, it's like
Yeah,
that, especially when we're dealing with plastics. Yeah, that's
yeah.
important.
Um, I have a big. I think part of the big background is I grew up in theater shops, and my dad is a hobbyist carpenter,
Oh, that's awesome.
and no bit of two by four uh, uh, or piece of oak or walnut or anything that's bigger than that goes to waste. And it'll be saved. It'll be saved and used somewhere.
That's awesome.
Um, and the majority of the time, when I was working with my dad in the shop, uh, he would be like, "Oh, I think I need a piece for that. Oh, I got a piece right here," and he'd pull out a little hunk of two by four this big, and I'm like, "See, I was saving this for something." And so any bit of scrap that's big enough that I can probably do something with, I always try and um, keep it saved.
it's like when you talk about your dad hanging on to stuff. On the one hand, I'm like, you know what? Good for you. Like, make sure that our impact on the planet is minimal. But at the same time, it's like, oh yeah, they call that a pack rat. Like, uh, my dad was the same way. Like he wouldn't. Well, I mean, by today's psychological standards, he would call him a hoarder. Uh, but yeah, he was the same way. He wouldn't. He just wouldn't get rid of stuff. You know, he would
Hmm.
just every glass jar that that he found himself with, and every like cardboard box, uh, he would just keep them for
Hmm.
who knows what reason. It's like uh, so it's like yeah, to a certain extent, if you think you have a way to use something, then it's like you can hang on to it and do that. But at the same time, you have to recognize when your behaviors are less practical, more unhealthy, you know?
Oh yeah. Um, and you also know your trade. You know what you can keep a hold of and
That's a very good
keep
point.
using, and you know what would be garbage. If you pull a screw out of um, like when I was working in theater, I pulled a screw out of a set piece and the head was all mangled or the or it had a bunch of paint in it or something like that, and you really couldn't re-screw it. It goes in the trash. If it's something that can easily be used again, especially in theater when you're trying to or building theater sets and trying to save money, you keep it.
Good point. Uh,
Uh, and that was the big thing. That was another big thing for from theaters. You're just trying to um, keep costs down and make your sets look nice.
and it's tough. It's tough with nylon whips because it's like right now I have a small pile of scrap of like filler in paracord, like things
Oh yeah.
1 foot and under. You know,
Uh huh.
like the way that I make my stock whips now, I'll be able to use those, so I keep them. Uh, but I presently don't have a really practical use for what am I trying to say? Short strands that I have removed the filler strands from. You know,
Right.
it's like I can try to keep the longer ones on hand for like knots,
Hmm.
but at a certain point, it's like okay, yeah, this is a 7-inch strand of uh, empty paracord sheath. Am I
Right.
going to use this? Is it, you know?
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. Those are why I kind of invented my scrap snakes, uh, where I use a lot of those and just basically make something that looks like a core of a whip, braid over that once, and then sell it out for cheap. So if someone wants a cheap whip just to make a sound, there you go.
that
And
is
actually, that's what this 5 foot snake that I just finished. That's what this whole thing is. I had some extra guts laying around. It's just the overlays, the only platted part of this whip.
okay.
Um, and this will probably go for a little under $100 on Etsy. Keep an eye
I,
out on the shop for anyone who's watching.
I would recommend that you ask more for it than that, just because like we were talking about, we have to keep the value in the craft, and I feel like something like that may be the sort of thing that makes people think, oh, making whips is cheap. You know,
That's true. That is true.
it's like I don't know, but only you can decide. what your stuff is worth, you know.
Yeah.
I guess
And I haven't decided a price for it.
for sure. Uh,
Uh,
I guess the point becomes, uh, you can't only consider your own, like, the impact to your own shop when you're pricing your stuff. You have to also consider the impact to other people's shops.
that is true. That is true.
Like, well, I don't know. I'm not going to name names, but there are definitely people who underprice their stuff, and it does not help literally anybody. You know?
And thank you, Jenna, for the comment. Uh, I
Yeah.
uh,
Oh yeah.
said I can probably
Yeah.
get more for it.
Almost. Oh man, down to the 8 plat here.
So are you going fat to thin on that, or are you plating it with an English eye?
I'm going fat to thin. My cow whips, which I decided is the way that I want to make my my very long whips. Uh,
Mhm.
am I too far from the phone? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Yeah, I decided that these are. I'm gonna make the cow whips the same way as I make the hybrids. In that, go here. Jeez. Yeah, fine. Uh, there's a tiny keeper at the end of the fat end, and that goes into the cup of the handle and gets set with a pin, and the pin gets covered
Okay.
with a knot, so it keeps that same aesthetic that people are used to, where you see the thong and then a little wood and then a little more like thong color and then
hmm
more wood, you know.
hmm
Uh, shoot. Anyway, but I feel it's much more stable uh, and long lasting. Uh, okay.
Uh, and Alyssa's asking for thoughts on beginner rates. Um,
Oh, okay. Like pricing your stuff as a beginner.
yeah.
Um, when when I first started, uh, I think like what I did to get my baseline was like I made a few whips where I just kept track of my oof. I just kept track of my material expenditures,
Uh
and
huh.
I logged all my time, my hours, start to finish,
Oh, nice.
and then I over a few whips I got a good baseline for, and I was giving myself like $12 per man hour, you know.
Okay.
Uh, and after a while, I started finding like, oh, 6 foot whips. I end up pricing those at about 150, you know. Uh, so I was just like, uh, you know, that works out to $25 a foot. So after a while,
Right.
I was just like, okay, I'll just do like $25 a foot, and that'll give me an easy rubric for like pricing things out for anybody who's asking. Uh,
hmm
but um, yeah, over time, you know, you get better, and that much is not really uh, reasonable to ask anymore.
Right.
Uh, so it was like I bumped the price a little bit when I started including shipping in
hmm
the price. I bumped the price a little bit when I started including pattern work. I bumped the price a little bit when something else probably just like got much better, honed in my braiding, stuff like that. Uh, Yeah, it's just I think that 25 per foot is a very reasonable place to start. Oh shoot! And I wanted to say, Alyssa, I did get apex braiding. I will do my best to answer, and I'm sure Isaac also has input for you. Let me finish this thing real quick. Thank you very much, Alyssa. I got your whip. I got your handle wraps. Very awesome. I want to talk to you about that soon. Uh, okay, so just got to figure out where I can put this stupid thing again. Everything's terrible forever. Life is pain. Jeez. Uh, while I figure this out, Isaac, you should talk to uh, Apex about wax.
Um, I actually don't have too much to say. Sorry for you, Apex. Um, I I haven't had my wax get stained all that much, um, or noticed it being stained. Even after waxing a couple red whips, even, which I know is kind of a big thing for it. And it hasn't uh, changed the color on any of my whips so far either. Although, and that's also to say, I haven't made any whips for a while in white. Uh,
I've found basically the same. Like even if the wax changes color, and you can tell that it does because it comes out like red on the paper towel or whatever, you know.
mhm.
Even if the wax changes color, I've never had it outright change the color of the whip.
Of a whip.
That being said, over long periods of time, I have experienced color bleeding, like one of my clearance whips that I'm probably going to post about later today, a little 3 foot nylon signal whip that is like gold, white, and burgundy. The burgundy has
Uh-huh.
definitely bled into the white, but it wasn't like that in the beginning. Uh,
Hmm.
so it's like I think that's one of the things that we just kind of have to deal with. I don't believe that there's a way to stop that aside from not waxing the whip.
Right. I guess one thing you could do is um, you have the or once you finish waxing the whip and your wax cools, you have the block of wax, and you can try to keep like maybe if it gets so bad to where it will stain your whip, like let's say it's really red, keep that one aside because I mean that's an $80 chunk of wax. You don't want to really get rid of that, but keep that for waxing your red whips, and maybe buy a new virgin batch for if you do like a lighter colored whip, something like a light blue or a white whip or something like that.
That's actually a good, responsible suggestion. Uh, and you know, I think I've only ever noticed that like red more more than any other color will bleed into the wax.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like maybe you have one block of wax for red and one block of wax for like literally everything else. You know, maybe
Yeah,
that would be yeah, orangish wax. That's my thing too. But yeah, I've never, like Isaac said, I've never noticed that it changes the color of the whip. It's just over time, just depending on the two tone colors like present in the braiding, you might expect some color bleeding. Uh,
mm-hmm.
but it's just really white. I think is the only color that gets bled into. You know, so it's like
Mm-hmm.
be prepared for that if you're making a whip that has white in it but is not solid white is what I would say.
Yeah,
And light gray also uh, is prone to bleeding or getting bled into, I should say.
Getting bled into. Yeah, I can believe that. And I guess one thing you could also do if you want to double check the bath, if say you have your oranges reddish bath and you're going to be waxing a white whip or a light gray whip, throw a couple pieces of just the straight paracord into the bath first. Let it soak for 5, 10, 15 minutes. Pull it out and see if it's changed color at all. And if it has, don't wax in that bath then. Either change it out or have your virgin bath that you can put it in.
But even then, I feel like you would probably only experience the off color absorption on like full size braided whips, just because it's like when you're looking at a droplet or even your block of wax, you can tell that it's like clear, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you'll basically, I'm trying to say, you'll only start perceiving it as opaque when it's very thick, and that looks terrible. Wonder what happened there. Oh, right. Sweet. Let me think. So you will only start experiencing that as opaque when it's very thick. So if you're waxing just like a strand or two, I'm not sure that would give you the feedback that you would need. Like, I don't know. Obviously, it's worth a try and like do it, but yeah, I don't know. Like, somebody who tries that would have to let me know, you know?
Yeah. It's a good question.
Oh man. Slowly getting there on this crazy thing.
Yeah. We're coming just up on the 2-hour mark since we started at 1. I guess, Tory, if you have any other points, or anybody else, if you got any other questions, we'll try and make it the final question before we call her a day.
Yeah, sounds cool. Let's see. So we got to give it like, let's give it like a minute, just because.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Or if you guys want to try and keep going, too, it's up to, I guess it's up to Tory, too. If you want to keep going, I'm more than welcome to. Well, we're waiting for a response here.
I think
my thoughts exactly.
I think I probably will get out of here after our time is up, just because, I don't know, my throat is getting scratchy.
I got you, man. Yeah.
I got to get some sweet water.
Yeah, I've been sneaking the old doctor's orders. Dr. Pepper, if you want to sponsor this video, let me know. See if we can get a sponsorship. I don't know.
How many flavors would you say are present in that delicious Dr. Pepper you're drinking? Would you say
at least 23?
Interesting. That is roughly what I've come to expect from their superior product, from their admittedly exceptional wares. Yeah, it looks like we're not getting any more questions.
Yeah.
Thanks a bunch, everybody, and thank you, Isaac. I will catch you and catch everybody again soon.
All right. See you, everybody. I guess
later.
that'll be it. Bye.